Thank you. Drew Thawley, West Street. Question, I believe, for the state. You did a nice job articulating the plover arc of return and volume relative to the goals. I didn't see anything about the lease turn. And so my question is, I know that they're treated very differently in many regards. One is federally protected, one is by the state. What are the goalposts for getting the lease turn off of that concerned list?
That's a great question. And, one of the problems that we have with lease turns is they're really hard to count. So that's really precluded us from having a strong sense of even what our population size is. We think the population's doing fairly well now, and it has increased, but it's very volatile. It goes up and down and up and down. So they're a very confusing species to manage, and we don't have a numerical abundance goal for delisting them for that reason. They're tricky to count. They do benefit from piping plover protection because they are overlapping. But what causes the big ups and downs in the population, it's hard to understand sometimes.
So
Yeah.
just to clarify, so there would be no way of producing a similar looking graph for lease turns, and both because they're not able to be counted, and do I understand also that there is no written or agreed upon benchmark?
So they're counted every year to the best of our abilities throughout the state. And so we do produce, we can produce graphs of their estimated abundance over time. But it's true that there is not a numerical threshold right now for delisting. They're not at the point yet where it would be considered because they're still pretty vulnerable and they're subject to what appears to be big ups and downs in the population.
Drew Thawley, West Street again.
Drew, I think you've asked a question already. Okay. All right, go.
Thank you. This is to the DBR, I believe. Definitely disappointing to hear that the state doesn't seem to have benchmarks for lease turns that are measurable. To me, it seems that the plovers are not really our major issue here. They're earlier in the season. They're a little bit more sporadic. The lease turns have, I think, been responsible for closing us out of all of July, or most of July and all of August. If there's no benchmarks in place and we're one of the leading sites in the state, I wonder if one of the initiatives that the DBR is exploring is to work with the state to get the lease turn removed from its status. We don't need to be at the complete mercy of an entity that we should have some influence over. So I'm curious about the DBR's perspective on that particular question. Thank you.
So I'm going through my book trying to find the dates because there isn't a very large number of weeks that it's only lease turns and not plovers. And it has to do with that the first plover closes it, if you will, but the last plover is the one that opens it, meaning they're continuously nesting throughout the season. So it isn't like all the, this is not going to make any sense, so please correct me. It's not like all the plovers nest and hatch and fledge and then leave and then the terns come in. They definitely overlap. So there isn't like a 3-week closure because of least terns without any plovers on the beach. Does that make sense?
So there are plovers on the beach in August?
Yes.
Okay.
For your other question about lobbying, or is that the correct term? I certainly would work with Carolyn to look at numbers. But to be honest, there's only 2 full-time people at Duxbury Beach Reservation. So my focus really isn't trying to lobby against, with the state to delist a bird that's threatened.
It's not threatened.
Okay.
Let's go to the next question.
Yeah, I mean, I would. Yeah, please.
Let's go to the next question.